How can someone catch themselves before they go too far down the wrong path? Because one of the things that you've mentioned is, there are some people that will say, well, I got this marketing plan, I invested in it. I'll be damned if I'm not going to get my money's worth out of it. And they're just going to continue down that path and not realize that it may be a great strategy or tactic, but it's not a great strategy or tactic for their business model. So, how can someone catch themselves before they go too far down the wrong? I've got my methods, but you're talking about systems and not just that, but strategies and making sure that people can understand what it is they're looking at. So, how do you help navigate that for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you know, the early stage, like more the solopreneurs, it's kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like you're teaching them how to pivot gracefully, right? You're teaching them of, okay, when things, it's okay, right? Like you're still, you're learning, it's okay if this, you're going down a path and it doesn't work and you feel like you've done due diligence, like it's okay. Like it's a part of the process. So
It
just
is.
accept it as such, right?
It
For
is.
those more established businesses, right? You're teaching them to listen because now they're surrounded with a team, right? And
Yeah.
they have you that's coming in as a strategist, right? It's a make sure you're gathering your data points, right? So that you can like read the leaves essentially, right? And you're teaching them how to do that. So they're going down this idea or whatever that they decided to do, like, hey, let's bring on this new process and it's not working for the team. Listen to your team, right? Make sure that you know how to pull in those data points, how to really ask the right questions to your team, right? And figure out what's not working, you know, and not just say, well, we just spent, six figures, five figures, six figures for this out of the box solution. We're going to use it. And then you're shoving your team into it and they're not happy, and it's not working. Like it's going to be lose lose because not only, you know, is that solution not going to work, now you've lost morale. Now you've lost the trust of your team. And I liked your analogy before about like the tightrope being much higher. You have more to lose when you're failing at that level. So now you're teaching
Right.
them, okay, how do you pivot at a larger scale and regain trust, and increase morale? How do you get your team to trust you again?
Yeah. Yeah. I think what I'll continue to do is separate this between like early stage businesses and the ones that are a little more seasoned because I want the early stage businesses to listen for certain parts so that it can help them figure out how to be able to put some of these iterations in place or know signs when they see it so that they can start to pay more attention. You're talking about data points, we're talking about the signs. Like there's things that take place. And if you don't catch it the first time, life has a sense of humor. It's just going to keep repeating it until you catch it. And then by the time you catch it, it's like, okay, what are you gonna be able to do about it? And that's where you can stop something that could have happened once and fixed it, and it turned into a pattern. So, data points for the early stage businesses, I want them to pay attention to the signs. One of the things that I hear you mentioning, and we're talking about it, but we're not like saying it outright to a certain extent, is learning to be able to ask better questions because better questions get you to better answers and it
Mhm.
gets you to better solutions. So much of early stage is about paying attention to not just what you think that you see, but everything that's going on around you. And the moment you see something, it's like my mind works with like, I don't know what that is, but I know it's something. So I'm just going to take a mental note of it or I'm going to write it down because until I can put a name to it, I at least know I have it over here. And then when I see it again or I see something else that's similar to it, then I'm like, okay, that's the second time I've seen it. If it gets to the third, that's a pattern, even if it's not the same exact thing. It's something that lets me know, okay, now I need to go ask someone a question and see if they can give a name to it so that I can figure out what it is. That's what I believe we're both saying when it comes to the early stage businesses. And then when it comes to the seasons, that's when you have to have trust. Like that's when you realize I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. That's where our corporate experience kicks in. Where, like we joked earlier, I said I used to get paid very well to see very far down the road and
Mhm.
they weren't paying me to tell them about the immediate problems. They were paying me to tell them about the ones that could potentially come up and how to be able to avoid them.
Well,
When you get to a seasoned business standpoint, you want to bring someone in that can tell you, okay, this is the landscape. These are some of the things that you're looking at. They can start to map things out in ways where it makes a lot more sense. And that's when you can start to look and say, okay, I don't have everything figured out, but the preventative measures allow me more bandwidth to be able to address the things that I couldn't control or the things that I couldn't plan for. I'm gonna go off script a little bit for 1 second because as a strategist, I'm fascinated to be able to see what your thoughts are on this because this is something that I've been thinking about more so lately, especially from a strategist standpoint. There's all these things that you can plan for, but strategies are planning for the things that you can plan for, but you have to free their times up to be able to address the things that you couldn't plan for. Like there's always something. And if you don't leave room for that something and be able to step in and help them when that happens, then that's where the pressure kicks in and they start to scramble. And then there's regret. And then there's the consequences. And there's all that extra stuff that comes on. So as a strategist, when you put together plans, are you mapping out, okay, here's all the known, and I'm gonna be here for the unknown. Like I'm giving you everything that you need to do here. But when this other part kicks in, that's when I really need to be able to have your trust so that you know I'm gonna be able to help you fix this part. We can take the preventative measures, but when this other part kicks in, like that's the part I think you're really paying me for. That's how I've been looking at least
Oh,
more so recently.
absolutely. I mean, yeah, like, being a technical project program manager, like, that comes with the territory, right?
Mm,
Like, the only thing, guaranteed is change or something's happening, right? So you have your risk mitigations in place, right? You wanna have contingency plans in place. You can plan up to a certain point, to your point of what you're saying, but then stuff happens all the time, right? There's like right now there's a lot of founders who are exiting, right? And so it's
yeah.
we're dealing with that. A lot of people build their businesses without thinking of their own retirement plans, right? Because they love what they do and they think, "Hey, I'm going to do this forever," right? And they never think like maybe I should have an exit plan. And now we're seeing a lot of that in our society today. And so things change. And
Mhm.
a lot of those businesses were very founder dependent. They were the ones steering the ship. They're the ones that were the visionaries. So what happens when they leave? What happens to the business? What happens to their legacy? These are things that, you really have to have. There's no strategy that's like, this is what, when we bring this new leader on, this is what's going to happen, right?
Mhm.
You can brace yourself, right, for that. You can make sure that your processes and your systems are in place so everyone knows their role, they know what they need to do, but you're still kind of by their side. You're still a part of that team to say, "Okay, now let's assess where we're at today and then make sure that we're fluid enough that we can change things." So a part of that strategy is being fluid enough. A part of that strategy is knowing that you have to leave room for flexibility because stuff happens. We're humans and life happens. I mean, even the non-humans, AI has hallucinations and messes things up at time, right? Like is like perfect, right? And so you always have to bake in room for error.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I've been looking at it more so, planning for it and having more conversations because there's something about telling someone you're a strategist or, that you work with strategy and they'll kind of nod, but they don't necessarily know what it means. And I can tell by the nod, it's like, "Oh, you're a strategist. Oh, okay." And it's you can ask the follow-up question. Like, I'm happy to explain what that actually means. And there's things that you can plan for, and, we can help with that, but then there's the things that you couldn't necessarily plan for, and you also need somebody to come in and be able to either not just stop the bleeding, but figure out how to be able to stop it, and then plan for everything else that needs to come after that. So, it's almost going back to the early stage business where if you've got a business idea, a strategist can help you turn it into a business opportunity and create that business model, and then the seasoned business, it's you've gotten yourself this far. Now let's take a look and see if your definition of success is still the same.
Mhm.
Because if it isn't, and it's something that's been being redefined based on what you got into it for, I give an example. There are some people that are very purpose driven, and then they got into it. And I joked with some people where they said, "Oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to be my own boss." I was like, "Do you realize what it doesn't really work that way?" What? You don't know what you're talking about. What does it mean? When you're an employee, you have a boss. When you're a full-time entrepreneur, you've got a boss. Your boss is your audience.
Mhm.
So if you're really trying to figure out how you can do something where you have your own say, maybe you should be looking at a portfolio career. But if you're
Mhm.
looking to build something where you're growing and scaling and you need a high volume of people, then you have to answer to those people. Like what you want is nice, but what they want is even more important. And you have to understand that part. So I know some people that are very purpose driven and they got into it to do one thing and then the business evolved into something else. And they were like, this isn't what I got into it for. To go, okay, either we need to change your definition of success or find a way to be able to allow you to still do the parts that you love, but still be profitable enough where like it's not going to kill the business because you want to do something else. So let's generate enough money so that the lights can stay on. And then we can figure out a way to be able to help you still do your passion project. So
Well,
there's some people that come to market with the passion project and then I'll have a conversation with them. I'll go through the business model and realize you're not that's gonna the runway for that is a way longer than you have time for. So let's build something that's gonna get you the money so that you can use that money to be able to pay for the runway that you need to be able to see to this passion project. So sometimes it's let's knock out the profitability so we can get you to that passion and purpose. And once we do that, that's how you can stay in that business that somehow you went from loving to not being able to stand.
yeah, I mean, and that is a strategy. That is a strategy, it's and what you're saying is like, where people really have to take a step back and say, "Okay, what does my situation look like?" You
Yeah.
know? I mean, if you're a trust baby and you like, you just got the money coming in, sure, do the passion project, like
Mhm,
you don't have
mhm.
bills to worry about, like you don't have anything to worry about. But, for the rest of us normal people, it's a what's my strategy? And it might just be doing the thing that you're good at until you could do the thing that your heart's at, right? I had that situation. Well, I had a friend, but we went to a conference. Amazing friend. She's probably, I don't know if she'll get mad at me for saying this, but I'm not gonna say any names, but she's awesome
Tread
and
lightly.
great. But no, we went to a conference and while we were at the conference, we actually met John Hope Bryant. I don't know if you know who John
Okay.
Hope Bryant is. We were asking him questions and we're just talking to him and she had a really good idea for business to do like something with housing, real estate, that's where
Mm.
he's very successful in. And it was like really philanthropic and his advice to her and he's exactly how he is as everyone sees him, very just cut dry blood to the point, and everything, which I love.
Can't
And
be mad at that, yeah.
he can, right? And so he basically told her straight up, like, do the thing first, it's gonna make you money, right? And then you could do the philanthropic thing, right? Then you could save everybody. But if you try to go in saving everybody from the beginning, you're gonna end up broke, right? Like you have to be strategic about it, essentially. In so many words. That's not exactly his words, but essentially that's what he said. And, she didn't like it. I agreed with him, and she didn't like that I agreed with him, but it's cool. But then later, like, she came back around and she's like, "Okay, I understood what he
Yeah.
meant by that, and I can see that now, um, and it does make a lot of sense." And so that is a strategy, like, we go out there and we have, like, the heart and we really wanna help people, and you can and you should,
Mhm.
right? Like, you definitely wanna do that. But then I think that that's the thing that a lot of people kinda struggle with, like, bridging the gap between, "Okay, how do I go out here and help people?" It's kinda like the analogy where they're just like, if someone's drowning and you're jumping out to save them, like, they're gonna
Yeah,
drown you too, right? You
yeah,
gotta throw them a lifeline, so you gotta be, like, smart about it, right?
yeah.
It's not me jumping into the deep with you, but it's like, what's that lifeline look like so that I can help you, but then also not drown myself at the same time, right? Then there's a flip side to that, right? Because then there are, I think, people that are corporate, going back to, like, your original thing, like,
Mhm,
there's a
mhm.
mental shift that has to take place from, when you leave the corporate job into becoming a full-time entrepreneur. So you're just very much used to this large construct, and you're used to, like, jumping in and doing, 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 doing. You're a doer, right? And now you're in entrepreneurship where you have to make the decisions and you're wearing all the hats and you're doing all the different things and you don't have someone that's like, "Hey, here's the plan. I need you to execute." Like you
Yeah,
have to also come up with that as well. And a lot of corporate folks that are shifting from that corporate world into entrepreneurship don't realize that there is that mental shift that has to take place. You kind of have to rewire your way of thinking and how to do business. It's not an automatic transfer of work. Like you can take your hardworking work ethic and pour into your business, but if you don't change that frame of thinking, you know, you're going to go in there with like these blinders on.